Dun 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 dun.
We are recording, please.
We are recording, bruv. We are recording.
Let me tell you something. Because I always feel like I have to air out my grievances when we have...
When you see people.
I'm like that
Every
child.
time you see people.
I'm like that child. You know, like that child when a visitor comes is when they ask you.
I've got one in there. What's to play soccer now? It's like...
Wow.
Yeah. With this guy here, over and over, so many times we've lost valuable...
You can't say over and over, bro.
Is this okay here?
Is it happened more than 3 times?
Twice, yeah.
It's happened more than 3 times.
Twice.
I can count how many times it's happened.
The Ebo Chungo episode?
Uh-huh.
That's all I can think of.
The one that we were doing when we were recording the advert for Caps, the Elm Cooker episode, and then we do the whole intro, and then you notice it wasn't recording. Ring a bell now?
I'm only human, guys. I'm not a machine. I can't be perfect all the time. I'm not programmed. So.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we've been rolling for a minute now.
Yes.
You know what's interesting? Before we
And
introduce
please,
our
on
guest,
this episode, don't fidget with the microphones.
can you leave me alone? Let me leave. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
We had a pretty interesting episode that aired last week.
Let's not even talk about that one.
No, we are, because it feeds into why we're here. So the backlash, well, not the backlash, but the response from that has been...
I heard it being talked about in Parliament, actually.
You lie.
I was like, yeah, okay.
From the podcast to Parliament. Look at us.
Yeah.
Really?
The issue was whether or not the pardon was done during the New Dawn government. So I think that was talked about.
And then the press statement says it was actually done before.
9th August, I think, 2021.
And you only came into power after
the election, which was,
it was on 12th August, yeah.
Wait, I'm still stuck on Parliament.
Yeah, so I don't know how the ministerial statement, I'll ask Honorable Mwimbu, but I think because of the controversy that came from the interview.
That was a statement that I saw.
Yeah, so you're doing good work.
My CV is where this is going to be. From now on, where's my camera? Go up, pay attention. That one, listen. I'm going to have an assistant. You don't call me directly. All right?
From now on, nobody talks to me directly.
Nope. You go through
There's a
God.
whole
You go
industry
to
about
God,
that.
God, you go to me.
Yep.
People getting paid to like do appointments, and you don't even know that someone's getting paid to make an appointment for you. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. But anyway.
Parliament.
Oh, you're still stuck on that one, yeah?
Our podcast was mentioned
In
there.
Parliament.
I don't know why this seems like it's so like it happens every Tuesday.
Wow.
Mind blown. But anyway, welcome to the ZIALE podcast. My name is K+, and you are... You can introduce yourself now.
You know my name.
It's K+, baby.
And we are at the residence of the Minister of Justice. And for the purposes of this interview, what can we refer to you as?
How can we address you?
Mula? I think it's easier.
Mula?
Yeah.
Like money.
Well, that's not the intention, but it's that's a short for Mulambo, which is my full name. Haimbe Njenja. Minister of Justice, State Council, Member of Parliament for here where we are, Lusaka Central. Constituency.
And
Remind me to speak to you about the CDF.
Oh yeah, we should talk off air.
And then, is it because the president sort of set the pace by not moving into State House? We're not in your ministerial yard right now. When you're in a personal home. Is this like deliberate? You're not moving into government homes, or what's the story behind that?
Yeah, kind of. But the priority is given to those that come from out of town. So you have all these ministers, and the ministerial houses are few in number. So you give priority to your colleagues who would have to live here and yet they come from somewhere else.
But that says a lot about you, though, because look, it's not like you are like the minister of okay, now I'm about to offend some people, but it's not like you've got like a small portfolio. It's like a huge portfolio that you look after. If you really wanted to press the issue, you could have if you really wanted it. So it speaks to how humble you are, and it's not really about how big your house is. It looks pretty comfortable too.
Thank you.
I mean, I had to stop this guy from going to the trampoline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As you can see in the background there.
Yeah.
And then, what's the issue with
But
your
you're
leg?
welcome to it, though.
Does this happen a lot in your office? Yeah.
No. Can you imagine? We had a sports event at Evelyn Hon College. So we got this bright idea that let's flag it off in style.
Yeah.
So we decided we're going to do a relay ourselves, the student union, and management. So that's like 3 lanes. So my team, we have Independence Ward Councillor, Mr. Madienkuku, who's very fit. So he came running at high speed. I thought, we're not going to lose this race. So immediately I got the button, started off trying to sprint, and ended up tearing like 3 muscles in my calf, my lower leg. So
basically,
In hindsight, that really was not a bad idea, was it?
no, it wasn't. And I didn't warm up. So I was like, I'm fit. I can do this. But yeah,
is
it's
this
one of those
you
things.
living in denial about
No.
your age? Or
I was
what?
about to say, yeah.
Get out.
Age has got a very interesting way of humbling you.
Yeah, I think there's too much of sitting in the office and sitting in parliament and what you only realize later that the fitness levels. I used to play rugby. The fitness levels are
Word?
nowhere near. Yes, I was prop forward for.
You were a prop.
Yeah.
Wait, so you used to go on the scrum?
Yes, tight head.
Because I used to be a wing, right?
Okay, so you run. You're quick.
Yeah, I used to be. I'm fat now.
Look at both of you right now.
I told this guy the last time, if you did not, and I don't condone this. I don't know if this happened when you were playing. I don't condone this. If you did not like anybody during the match, the type of things that happen in the scrum.
Yeah.
People used to punch each other in the scrum.
Yeah.
Like when the scrum disengages, someone's got a bloody nose. And you're like, what the hell?
Oh.
No,
Anyway.
I've got a feeling there's a very interesting story about to come out.
So anyway, so what happened is then I just immediately after that, I got COVID just now, a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So I was bedridden, of course, not necessarily bedridden, but confined, and didn't realize that there was a hematoma forming in my leg. So the injury got aggravated. The leg got that swollen. I actually had to get admitted for it to be to get to this stage where I can actually move around without pain. So yeah, that's the story about the leg. But all in service to the country, to the people of Lusaka Central.
Look, had that been me, you're a better person than I am. Had that been me, I would have immediately thought it's witchcraft.
True that.
Somebody's been wishing, how do I get COVID? How do I mess up my leg? How does my leg begin to swell?
All in a short space of time.
Witchcraft.
That I think also forced to rest because I work very, very well, like blowing my own trumpet, but really I do put in quite a few hours for the constituency and for the office.
Can be easy.
So yeah, so I was forced to rest, which is possibly the only positive I can see from the situation. Good 2 weeks of not being active, no phone calls, nothing, just rest, pure total bed rest.
Do you feel like you're missing out on a lot?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
family time. Mostly, yes. You don't get to spend that much time with the family anymore because the demands are constant, and of course, with public life, you have to restrict yourself from some of the usual activities. And as you say, this age thing, you feel like you're still young.
But what do you miss though about life before the ministerial job?
As I said, mostly family time.
Family time.
Yeah, and then
Now,
also the social time.
Away from family time, yeah, the social
the
time.
social time.
What were you up to before being?
Yeah, just basically being a Zambian guy. Spend time with the guys every so often. You do your church, you do whatever everybody else gets to do. Watch a lot of rugby, soccer, and all that. But now you have to really limit because, for example, you can't be seen using all those. All that flowery language we'd use when we're watching a match. I picked my words very carefully.
Somebody quotes you.
Oh yeah,
And with social media.
Yeah, and it's
Happen in
true.
real time,
There's a lot of misrepresentation as well.
Yeah.
You'll be sitting with a colleague, and people will take shots from a particular angle and create a story from there. So you really have to be.
So you missed the pub.
But nothing wrong with
Putting
going
it
to a pub.
I'm just
though.
saying,
Bluntly,
like, he missed those chills.
No, but
Yeah.
nothing wrong with going to a pub. Though.
No, I'm just saying, like, he misses those because now as Minister of Justice, there's armed security around him. He just can't go to any pub to chill anymore.
Really, you move with armed security?
yes.
You didn't see the guy with the gun?
No.
You did not see the AK-47? No. Oh, wow.
Oh, he's over there.
A word?
Yeah.
Approach this yard with caution, bruv.
Wait, so is it every minister or is it particular ministries that get armed security?
For home, it's everyone. The protective unit goes to all the homes. But then for me, I have an ADC who's armed.
What's ADC?
An aide de camp, bodyguard, because of the portfolio. It's not everyone that has an ADC.
So justice is a very sensitive
It is.
ministry.
So he doesn't come home with you?
No.
Or because you already
because
have
we
somebody
already
here?
have here. Yeah, someone here.
Wait, someone I wanted to ask again just now.
It is very sensitive, yeah.
How so?
Well, the presumption is that the Ministry of Justice determines all the criminal matters and decides who gets to jail and so on and so forth, when in fact not. But the very fact that people assume that means that you are put under risk on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
You know, before you walked out, I was having a conversation where I said, so this is me trying to learn, obviously. I assumed that the Ministry of Justice or the work that the Ministry of Justice does would easily have been under Home Affairs, and that there wasn't any Ministry of Justice because, you know, under Home Affairs is where you find the police, is where you find correctional service, which those two things already touch on law. So I was trying to figure out why an entire ministry would then have to be there.
Yeah. Okay. So Home Affairs does the hands-on sort of work, investigation, and so on and so forth. So DEC, Zambia Police Service, and Zambia Correctional Service are under the Ministry of Home Affairs, and those deal with the actual investigations with custody in terms of persons who are either in conflict with the law, in remand, and so on and so forth. So that is obviously quite heavy. But there's also the need to temper what Ministry of Home Affairs does through the Ministry of Justice and the promulgation of the laws. So we're the ones that are in charge of ensuring that legislation is properly in sitting with government policy and with, of course, the aspirations of the people. So there is quite a big gap in what we do. And then also under the Ministry of Justice, you have the Legal Aid Board, for example, that is a grant-aided institution under ourselves that deals with the defense for people who are indigent, those who can't afford to pay for their own legal services. And then we have the judiciary is an independent arm of government, but we do the policy work and some of the administrative work. For example, going to Parliament to debate the budget. It is under myself. So you can't have all that sitting with one ministry, one particular portfolio. But in Rwanda, it's interesting that many of the things that the Rwandan police do sit with the Minister of Justice, the investigation aspect of it. So they've sort of merged the two to a large degree, and it works perfectly for them because then police end at arrest and custody of detained persons, and then they leave the investigation to be done under the Ministry of Justice. There's a whole forensic unit there, and it gives a balance because then the person who does the arrest is not the person that does the investigation. There's that separation, and it gives some transparency as well.
So to be Minister of Justice, I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know how ministers are picked, especially in Zambia, right? I'm assuming you need to have appropriate qualifications in law because, you know, look at South Africa, for example, you've got someone like Fikile Mbalula, who the one month he's Minister of Police and the next is Minister of Information.
Multitasking.
Yeah, right. So I'm trying to figure out, like,
all trades.
whoever has that ministry really should know a lot about law, information technology, or whatever really that they are heading. So is that the same?
Yeah, well, the knowledge, yes, but not necessarily the qualification, because you recall, for example, Honorable Luinda, the immediate past Minister of Justice, he did have a law degree, I think, but he's not a qualified lawyer. He didn't go to ZIALE. So, yes, you can head up the ministry, but it works. There's a great advantage in having knowledge and the skill because then you're able to understand more clearly what we're trying to achieve when we, for example, when we do the law and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a challenging environment though. We have over 100 lawyers that sit in the Ministry of Justice. Of course, we're a unique ministry because we have constitutional office holders, the Attorney General, who's independent. He doesn't get any instructions from the Minister of Justice. I'm only a policy head. And then the Solicitor General. Those are the government lawyers who run all the government civil litigation matters. So, and of course, advise government, number one advisor to government. So it's a very, very interesting environment. I myself, just a couple of days ago, hit 22 years at the bar since we completed ZIALE.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Speaking of the bar, there's been a lot of complaints from lawyers around the country.
22 years?
Yes.
Wait, sorry. I'm slow.
Yeah.
Especially today. You don't look a day older than 40.
No, I'm 47.
It's 47.
Yep.
Yeah. And your birthday was like a month ago, right?
Yeah, and 12th of May.
Oh, you're only 2 years older than him.
Oh, really?
Only. But look at how much younger I look than you. I should ask me
You
the
must be
secret.
doing the right things. Oh, I know a little bit about that, actually.
You're speaking about ZIALE.
I was speaking about ZIALE and how I've been hearing these conversations a lot from lawyers, especially those, still attempting exams and all that. And a lot of them are wondering why there's been so much delay in terms of you talking about, policies relating to SI 49 and how people can only attempt the bar exams 5 times and after that they're just barred for life.
Actually, we've taken a policy position on that.
Which you haven't announced yet, have you?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
We have to get, of course, all the T's crossed and I's dotted. But really, the long and short is that provision is discriminatory and is not fair. So we want to do away with the SI completely. Revoke
I
it.
like
What does SI 49 say?
I like that you say it's unfair because the general feeling is that you almost have a bit of like you don't really you're not giving it the attention it deserves. That's a feeling I'm getting from a lot of lawyers. SI 49 talks about when you're attempting the bar exams, if you fail 5 times,
You're barred for
you're
life.
barred for life.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I like that.
Yeah. So the complaint
Was
is
that Ken that told you this?
No. So it's in the papers, bro. So the complaint from most of these lawyers is that if the president is advocating for education being the best equalizer, why then 5 times and you're just barred?
And
why haven't you worked on it, expeditiously?
Well, it's you can promulgate laws very easily, but then to reverse them, there's quite a bit of a few processes. But
as a minister, it's an SI. Isn't it just as easy as you?
Nah, because it's policy. So you need to make sure that you get buy-in from all the relevant officers as high as you can go. But really, to the point, there are different circumstances. People find themselves in different. It's not that they're not smart or whatever the case may be. We have a couple of people, for example, who would have failed 1 course, 2 courses, 3 courses, 4, 5 times, and then they end up getting barred for life. If you can pay for the service, I think it only makes sense that you should be given as much opportunity as possible. And it's self-regulating. At the end of the day, if you don't have the skill and capability, you will not go through. No matter whether you're barred for life or as the case may be.
Respectfully,
that's my view.
So let me push back. I'll tell you why I don't understand, why I don't agree. Sorry. There are some jobs that you really cannot have people that are borderline good.
Yeah.
Imagine if you knew that your pilot, for example,
Attempted 10 times.
attempted 10 times, and on the 11th
Is when he made it.
It scrapes through. Yeah.
yeah, you'd be like,
It's a
"You know
fine
what?
balance."
I will take the next flight.
Or your doctor was like on the operating table, and then you're like, aren't you the guy?
My neurosurgeon wrote how many times?
You get healed immediately. You're like, no.
I'm like, you know what?
But how quickly do you think?
Wait, hold on. Let me finish my point. So the point that I was trying to say is, I feel like with lawyers, a lot of the time, a person's life is in their hands, depending on whatever crime that you're being charged with.
Or
Literally,
even civil matters as well. Yeah.
right? Your life is in their hands. So if you're gonna have somebody whom, regardless of whatever circumstances, made them try 4 or 5 times. Chances are they are not.
They're not cut out for it?
not cut out for them, but then they're not sharp enough to have gotten it. I don't know. This is just me being a perfectionist. But if I know that a lawyer got it on the first try and one got it after 6 tries,
Like me.
You got it on the first try?
Yeah.
see, there you go. And now he's a whole minister.
SC.
Yeah, but I hear your
Some
point.
respect on his name, bro.
Yeah, I hear your point. It's a fine balance, but then, like I say, it is self-regulating. The industry, if I may call it that, the profession is such that very quickly those that don't meet the cut and who would have perhaps found themselves as qualified lawyers will be the clients who know. It's pretty easy to get to know from within the profession and from also the client base. They're able to tell, okay, here, let's exercise some caution.
As a client, how easy is it for me to find out my lawyer's qualification? Like, can I find out when they took the bar, if they took the bar? Is that public information?
It's ought to be public information.
Ought to be.
Yes.
So is it?
So yes, you can get that information from the Law Association of Zambia. Actually, when we do the renewal of the practicing license, or when they do the renewal of the practicing license, I'm still in the private sector in my mind. they put out when you were called to the bar and all that information. It's available. But whether or not they have the requisite skill for, and this is why what's the word I'm looking for? Ours is a merged profession. There's no requirement for one to be an expert in a particular field. So that tends to be a problem as well, because everyone wants to be a jack of all trades. And you find sometimes that people would not know. For example, if you're doing arbitration practice, it's completely different from litigation. Many lawyers struggle with that. And perhaps we should be looking, with the numbers increasing, I think we should be looking at the possibility of saying people can call themselves specialists and work in a particular area of law.
Right.
So how quickly do you think you're going to do away with SI-49?
And I think pretty soon as the AG gives a particular position,
Right.
Yes, I think it's something that should happen before the next set of repeaters are due to write their
Because those are the ones who are actually
Yes.
very worried.
yeah. I know. There was a whole movement. And they wrote, some of the candidates that were barred wrote and asked to be for the law to be changed, and something that's being worked on. So pretty soon it will be done.
Yeah, because people are feeling like we've written to him, there's been no response. I've been sent some letters just now.
From Ken?
No. Ken sends me everything.
I'd like to meet Ken.
I know, right?
Yeah, so with policy issues,
Yeah.
you can't. I'd love to respond and give a holding reply, but what's the point? I've talked to some of those colleagues that have written specifically one-on-one on the telephone, but I'm not going to write and say we're looking at the policy position. It doesn't make sense.
I think they're waiting for like a very official, response, like in the papers, direct response from you in the papers.
It will
and things like
come
that.
when we actually take action, or if we don't, if we get to a point where policy shifts and we decide that we won't do away with SI, then they'll be informed accordingly.
So the repeaters shouldn't worry right now.
For the time being, no, they shouldn't.
I think that's the question now. How long is this time being?
Yeah, so you're trying to get a specific date. No, I can't give a specific date as at now. But I know that we are acting on it actively from the highest level, from my office.
I think before we get too technical, I know a few of us are learning one or two things here, but we're also interested in knowing about your life. So you were born, 12th May, 1976. You know what else came out in 1976? The movie Jaws.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Spielberg movie, the movie Jaws.
And
do you know?
What's the correlation there?
Now, just remembering the year, because
Like
that's one of my
shock.
Yeah. and do you know that before that movie, people did not fear sharks?
Oh, no, I didn't know that. So it created a whole genre of,
and the whole
phobia.
Yeah, a whole phobia. And I think for me, that speaks mostly to mental conditioning and how I'm tying that into the movie Jaws, because people didn't fear sharks before that. But after the movie, then I'm trying to imagine.
I think you need to add, white people didn't fear sharks.
Yes.
I didn't say that.
Because of the people that are attacked by sharks, I will guarantee you almost 90%
are white.
Because we don't even like the water to begin with.
I saw one of what's his name, the colored guy from South Africa,
Trevor
Trevor Noah,
Yeah.
talking about our fear for water,
And how no black man would have been in the submarine as well.
yeah.
But yeah, and that was also Steve Harvey.
Anyway, I brought up mental conditioning because I'm trying to understand the kid, Mulambo Haimbe. What aspirations he had and what kind of a person he was. Let's say at 10, did you always dream of being a lawyer? Did you see yourself where you are today? Was this like a vision you had from the time you were a kid?
I can't really remember that far, but I know it was more or less conditioning, because I come from a family of lawyers. So my late dad was a lawyer, my late mom was a lawyer, my brother, my elder brother is a lawyer. So I think it's something that it was just more or less that's the way to go, and also the politics. My late dad was a politician as well. Yeah, his last portfolio just before the MMD came into office was as Minister of Power, Transport and Communication, and MP Livingston Central. So I'm answering the question before it comes. But yeah, the way we were raised is like service was always ingrained on us. Give back to society the little that you can, and so that has been more or less a mantra. And it goes deeply in the family, and how we want to do things. So the reason the push for going the political route was really watching the country declining, and you're like, how long am I going to sit on the fence? So it was a very subtle sort of way of starting, with mostly representation of people that found themselves in tricky circumstances, including our current head of state. And then it rolled into this whole, I can actually go for Lusaka Central. Everyone thought it was a joke. And yeah, well, we're here now.
And the schools you went to, as we still talk about your history, yeah,
and that was part of the campaign. I'm a Lusaka Central, born and bred. I was born at Minor Soko Military Hospital, which is Lusaka Central. Woodlands A Primary School, which is Lusaka Central. Kabulonga Boys. Only when I went to tertiary to the University of Zambia did I move away from Lusaka Central, but soon came back and I live here now. So that's part of the campaign. It worked, eh?
Yeah, you know, it sort of says a lot about your character. I mean, your dad was a lawyer, your mom was a lawyer, your brother was a lawyer. I mean, if that had been me, I'd have been like, my calling is to be a criminal. I mean, I have so many people who bail me out.
I wasn't expecting that.
didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I can,
white collar crime.
Yeah, I can do whatever I want. I got 3 people in my family.
Do you know who my dad is?
Fam. Okay?
Yeah.
Oh, my mom. Oh, my brother.
Man, don't mess with me.
You know?
So I think, and also speaking more to, again, I'm trying to get into the psyche of,
You want some of that?
No, not yet.
no, it's got a hangover.
You were saying? Yeah. The psyche of?
So we can take a break and you can work on the hangover.
No, the fact that you're seeing the country in decline. A lot of the people, I would say 90% of the people will be like, it's not my responsibility. You know what I mean?
True.
They'll sit back and fold their hands and be like, no, somebody else would pick that up. There aren't too many people who will step up and say, I'll be the person to do it.
That's very true. And I think that's the challenge we have as a people. We could go a long way, but we sit on the fence. We just, somebody else's job.
Even when it comes to voting.
Yeah, true.
People are so nonchalant.
Yeah. They're not interested at all. Well, at least, except in those
Recently.
revolutionary kind of situations like 1990, 91, and then the subsequent elections where you had this protest sort of approach to it, and this one was really something else.
In basically studying people's attitude, I feel like Zambians have actually realized that they have a lot of power. If they're unhappy about something,
They'll speak out.
The murmurs are there. They are disgruntled. But in here, they've realized, wait, hold on. We can actually change the government.
Yeah. And that is a real challenge, because you have to earn your keep. strictly speaking, you really do have to earn your keep, and it's not easy, eh? Especially for one that's holding these. You've got a ministerial portfolio and then you've got the constituency. I'm lucky. I live in the constituency, so I just walk down the road when I want to interact with the electorate. But then the expectations are extremely high. And that is something that has to be contended with, because people think that you're going to sit with them every day, explaining issues, buying shima, eating shima, which we have no challenge doing. There's no problem with doing that, but it can't be done every day. And that's one of the biggest challenges that's there, because you go away for a couple of weeks, you're convalescing, and people will say the MP is not seen anymore. Yeah, and you can't tell the whole world, look, I've got COVID. So it's pretty tricky in that regard. To answer your earlier question, that's one aspect of life that has really changed, because you would have a personal situation, or people would not understand that there's a personal situation you have to deal with. Your life is all public, so you need to tell everyone, I've got diarrhea today, please.
Can you stock up on the tissue?
I'm still on you're coming up. You're growing up. What kind of a boy were you? Because you strike me as one of those. What's that phrase again? Two waters run deep. You strike me as one of those who was quiet but notorious at the same time.
I don't think I was.
You are not.
Yeah, your face is wrong.
You have that kind of a face.
I'd like to think that I had a combination of qualities, I think, if I can call it that. I was head boy, deputy head boy at Kablonga Boys.
And then you couldn't be notorious.
Yeah, so...
Says a lot about your character if you're a head boy of such a big school.
Though there are stories to tell. Anyway.
It's just the three of us here. You can share one or two with us.
Yeah, those are interesting times. Some of the most interesting. I was also in the debate club, so some of the most interesting times were going to other schools to debate.
The girls' schools, right?
Oh.
I don't think you should be watching this.
No.
You can tell us.
As soon as I drove in, boy came to greet us, and he's a spitting image of you. I'd never seen you. But so he says, "Oh, you look just like your dad." And up until I saw you, I was like, "Geez."
Oh yeah, that's our Mulambo, our firstborn. Yeah, going to university soon. So.
If he wants to see how he's going to look at 47,
just look at you.
Yeah, he'll be like, "Okay, this is cool."
I want to hear the debate stories, though.
Yeah. Oh, those were fun, and lots of fun. We had a very competitive debate league at the time in Lusaka. So I remember my nemesis was a young, now deceased lady called Abigail Luando. So we would go to these debates, and we were competing for the provincial best, which she ended up getting our second. I was very upset about that. But then you'd find, you go to Roma Girls, for example, a very cloistered school, and you have this debate, you end the debate, and everyone is coming over to hug and cheer and all that. So yeah, young fun. It was very exciting. I've edited that story, by the way.
I noticed when he looked that way.
Yeah, right. Like, oh, okay. There's a camera here. Yeah.
And then university, how's that for you then?
University was actually a very interesting experience. I never went to boarding school, so it's the first time I was away from home. And actually, just yesterday I was attending my first roommate's matebeto.
Wow!
Yeah, so the memories came rushing. But you find that you have all these freedoms, as you've said, for the first time, and you are your own person. And my roommate played a crucial role. He was in fourth year, I was in first, so he was very able to hold the excitement of being free. But yeah, very good experience. We got delayed because we went to uni in that was 95. Then we had a 1 year closure. I think that was the time when there's a lot of turmoil. Yeah. So we lost a year and we graduated in 99. But through that period, one discovers oneself, and of course, public speaking continued to be an integral part of the university life as well.
I did public speaking.
You did, yeah?
Yeah, same here.
For 3 years.
Oh yeah, it's fun, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
But to hold sway on a whole crowd, I think that's the best feeling.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I also lost a Commonwealth debate to a girl from St. Mary's, and her name was Mary. There's a national, yeah.
Painful,
so the fact that you have to announce that it was a girl?
Yeah, just like he did. Yeah.
What's the point?
So
He
again,
lost to London. We're just saying maybe.
another disclaimer: we're not saying that we.
We're not saying anything against women. So
I say this just to rile up the feminists.
They're watching.
So what you saying about girls?
they're really good speakers.
So it was them that said this, not me. Yeah, I speaking of the women's movement, a deep respect for the women's movement, and I like the way they rallied together over the conviction of our two mischievous young men, if I can call them that, the serial rapists. I think for me, the two abductors, as they were called commonly, that had these 13 girls for a couple of months.
Oh, right.
And then they were slapped with life.
I think for me, this is one opportunity I'd like to use to give kudos to the judiciary over the way they handled that matter. The public was extremely upset with the charges initially that they heard the two had been given.
What were the initial charges?
Sexual abuse.
Yes, they seemed to have been very mild, but then as the case built on and as evidence came, they were able to give appropriate charges. And I think they were given also aggravated robbery as one of the charges, but I suspect that one was dropped when they agreed to plead guilty because obviously it was a plea bargain. And I think that by pleading guilty, they thought that they would pretty much walk away with a slap in their hand, and the judge did justice.
And life is harsh, man. Do you ever look at certain cases and think, okay, maybe that punishment is too harsh, not fitting the crime? Do you ever look at and think that over some cases?
Yeah, there will be some. Okay. That's the other challenge that we have with the law, and this is something that we're working on. I've heard a lot of public sentiment about this. You steal a chicken, you go in for 3 years. You steal 100 million kwacha, you go in for 3 years. Where is the
balance?
Yes, the balance, the fairness, and the weight. And this is something we want to do with our statute book. Right now, as we speak, we're revising the penal code and the criminal procedure code so that we can give a degree of logic, if I may use that, to the sentencing process. If the lower the crime, if I may call it that, we should be able to give sentences which are non-custodial. But again, it's always going to be a balance because there are serial criminals out there who keep on offending and offending and offending.
Yeah. 2 questions.
Yeah.
One is a question / statement. I heard one of them escaped from prison, one of the abductors, and was then later caught.
No, that was a rumor. I think the Minister of Home Affairs issued a statement in Parliament as well over that. That was a rumor. No, they never. Neither of them escaped. At any point.
The second one is you mentioned that because of the public outcry, if a crime is committed and there's so much public interest, do you think that has a sway on how that case is handled in terms of the fairness, in terms of the sentence handed down? Because the initial charges, had they not been like so much attention on this particular case, do you think that would have been what would have just been the charges that would have stuck?
Ideally, the training is that no, you're not supposed to be swayed by public sentiment, and that's I know is very, very strict training for adjudicators at various levels, be it at magistrates' court or in the superior courts. But that is the reason why you have the offense, if I may call it that, of sub judice, where people are not allowed to talk about matters that are actively in court, is to prevent that public opinion, because at the end of the day, adjudicators are human as well. And it's discouraged, especially for criminal matters, to talk about the facts of the case and literally convict someone in the court of public opinion. Yes. But the training is very, very rigorous. I can say that with regard to the extent to which you can allow outside influence on
to influence
decision.
your
Yes, it should
decision.
be purely based on the evidence before court. This is why you find where in the public opinion someone is literally convicted, when they go to court, they find themselves on getting acquitted, for example.
So the crimes that these guys committed, it was kidnapping,
rape, and I think there was I'll be speculating, but I know that there was aspects of the kidnapping, there was rape, and I think extortion.
Extortion.
Yes, and at about 3 or 4 or 5 of them, I think the charges that were laid.
Interesting. I like that you spoke about, people coming from outside and all. I'd like to bring your attention to...
I'd like to bring your attention to.
Yes.
That's him sounding very professional.
You can tell I'm really trying, eh?
Oh, man.
Try not to be too casual with our honorable minister here. But anyways, that's their podcast, so I can be. In Solwezi, let's just say Northwestern Province, a named mine, there's what people are feeling is unfairness, which it is if you really look at it critically. And I don't know what the laws say about this and where employees in these mines can go, or what the laws say about such situations where somebody comes from outside to work in the mines. And this is happening in a named mine in Northwestern Province, right? An expatriate comes in and he starts working with, fellow Zambian miners who are more qualified than him for certain jobs. But he becomes sort of their boss and he gets even 10 times what they're getting paid. Is there anything within the law that, can prevent such things from happening, or what can those employees who are, aggrieved and not too happy with that situation do?
I think I'll stand to be corrected.
Yeah.
I think the laws do provide for where the expertise is there in the country. The first point of call should be the local experts. I think the law is quite clear on that. If I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected.
You're correct.
But yes, that imbalance is something that all ministers of labor have been struggling with from time immemorial, because there's the investor who believes that they can bring in people that they trust and who have the expertise that they want to run these mines, versus the local people. Then that balance has to be struck. But the policy position, the principal position is that where the expertise exists in the country, the work permit will not be granted until and unless it can be shown that this person has got a specific skill which is not predominant.
So the Ministry of Justice can't help in any way, can't do anything about these, considering it's in the law that, you need to look within the country
It's first. On the operative side, so it will have to be Ministry of Home Affairs through the Department of Immigration and the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. What is it called? Labor and Social Security, yes.
So maybe to add more to your response. Number one, it is the company that does the application on behalf of the person who's going in.
Employee.
So they need to prove that
they can't source.
They cannot source. Right. That's number one. Number two,
this labor within the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number two is the work permit or whatever it is that they get has got a lifespan, and the condition of them most likely getting this is if you have got the talent or the knowledge that locals cannot get. It's on condition that if we're going to give you a 3 or 6 year, you're going to train the people that you're working with to take over.
Yeah, but you know what's happening? A guy comes in from South Africa and the Zambians start teaching this guy how to do his job.
Yeah.
And the Zambian is getting 17,000 kwacha and the guy they're teaching is getting $11,000 for the same job.
So I can't speak to the specifics,
Yeah.
but then what normally happens again, if you move from country to country, take a look at, what's the guy from Yellow Card?
Chris. Yeah.
Right. Yellow Card. So Yellow Card is a cryptocurrency company. It's available in plenty of countries, Zambia, Nigeria, etc. Is when he comes in here,
Right.
there are things that he will learn from Zambians about the local market. When he goes to Nigeria, it is the same thing. The concept, though, about cryptocurrency or the business, he has the general idea. But it changes from country to country. So when you go to a different country, you're going to be told a couple of things.
No.
about that particular market.
Let me explain what I'm talking about. Somebody comes with a grade 12 certificate from abroad. You know what I mean? White guy. Let me not bring race into this issue, but white guy comes in.
Disclaimer.
Okay? Disclaimer. Comes in and he's made supervisor in a department where there are engineers who are qualified to do that job. And now they have to start teaching this grade 12 guy to do that job so that he can become their boss. I know the situation you're talking about where, yes, he's got the qualifications, but he has to learn the system or, the regulations that are different.
That's corruption, bro.
Yeah. It's corruption,
So
right.
that is
That's happening in a named mine right here in Zambia.
I think most certainly there's need for that to be looked at with a keener eye, because it's clearly in violation of the policies which apply to labor in the country. And it's just like the requirement to have, say, 20% for local contractors.
Right.
You find that these big contractors keep fighting that provision. It's there in black and white, and it's an enforcement issue. How do people get to enforce the provisions of law that are there to protect the locals? Because every country does it. You are expected to protect the indigenous
locals,
people.
yeah.
Yes. And the sooner we're able to do that more effectively, the better. But I know that a lot of effort is being put across the board to ensure that we protect our people.
Because people are really complaining in Northwestern Province, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But anyway.
But for me, all of these matters can easily be fixed by the direction we're taking as a New Dawn government. There's a real drive to ensuring more opportunities for the locals. For example, in the gold mining sector, I think you've heard this has been mentioned by the Honorable Minister of Mines a couple of times, and even the President, that look, we want to have artisanal mining for gold, so that you have more local people participating in, and then you aggregate, you have government-owned or aggregation facilities where they can actually put their produce, if I can call it that, together and go to market fairly. So once we have more entrepreneurship and more people employing themselves, many of these complaints will fall away.
So it's not really a question, but maybe a discussion. And this is not unique to Zambia, it's all over the world. Where people vote for a president. They don't vote for a minister. A minister is appointed. Is there a different way? And again, most of these people who then go into parliament are policymakers, and the decisions they pass would directly affect you and I. Would there be a way to sort of also have a more stringent control over such appointments? Obviously, it rests with the president, but I'm sure you get where I'm going. I mean, all over the world is the same thing. You elect a president, and the president basically appoints who he trusts would run the job better. But not everybody who's appointed always pulls their weight. Is there a way basically to sort of keep people such as yourselves, other ministers, to account, if I can call it that?
The system we run is at the level of presidential appointment. You are accountable to the appointing authority. So of course you are equally accountable to the people in terms of delivering your mandate, but it's only the appointing authority that can determine whether or not you should continue running in that portfolio or not. Unfortunately, whether or not there is a way, it leads to questions as to whether we want to change the entire way in which we run government and to dilute the powers of the president to an extent, so that other stakeholders have a say in how the close people that are appointed by him would then do their job. But then when you talk about that, then effectively you're giving that responsibility to other people. And the good thing about having it, the responsibility of a president, is that ultimately we have to pull up our socks, keep our game at a certain level for us to continue holding these roles that we hold. I know that sometimes you hear of a press conference, the people out there are happy. The rest of us are like, oh goodness, what is he going to say? So it's actually we are, for this particular government, for this particular president, he takes no jokes.
I've noticed. Speaking and a part of the question that I was asking, and I agree with you largely. I mean, I asked it because not every minister who's appointed is going to do a good job, and it's good that we have a president who sort of holds these people. He holds their feet to the fire, basically. And I really don't agree with, even if the power was given to people to vote for the minister, I don't think that's the right way. And right now, what I'm about to say is highly unpopular, but I don't think democracy is the best way to pick a government. I really don't.
Yeah, the school of thought is there. Yeah, I was calculating the response.
Yeah,
that school of thought is actually
because
gaining ground.
Right, because basically what it says is you've passed the bar. You are a highly intelligent person. Basically, everybody here, I would say, is pretty intelligent. There are people who are not so intelligent. Basically, what democracy says is your vote counts as much as someone who's given a T-shirt to say, because I've given you a T-shirt, vote for me. So your vote counts just as much as that. And that's basically how a government is elected. And I feel that really should not be the basis of how you pick a government, because people are gonna pick a government because they like their T-shirt or because they give a milli-mil. You know what I mean?
There are serious schools of thought around democracy as we know it. Of course, we subscribe to the fact that so far there are very few other systems that are effective in allowing the citizens to participate effectively in the affairs of the country. But you'll see, for example, you go to Morocco. I was there recently. You would think not even in Europe. You go to Rabat, you go to Casablanca, you go to any of those cities, you can see that these are an organized set of people. And they're on the African continent. What makes them different? Because it's a monarchy. And the monarch runs the country in a very effective manner, with a very tight fist. And you see that they're able to advance. So you ask yourself, shouldn't we have some of those systems in place for us to get work done? Because again, in a democracy, you find the detractors prevent things from happening that ought to happen, for example. But again,
yeah, that's true. But then again, not all monarchies. I mean, look at Swaziland.
Yeah, well,
all of them are fully functional.
Those are my comments. Yeah, those are my comments.
I like that you spoke about the press because. And this is a feeling with every organization in Zambia when it comes to information. I think the access to information bill has been spoken about for far too long. When do you think it's going to be actualized? We're hoping the new Dawn government would have worked on it quicker than.
What I know from the Ministry of Information and Media is that the bottleneck now currently is. There was a decision to go back and do for some further stakeholder consultation. The draft bill, the layman's draft, was actually brought to the Ministry of Justice, and it had a few flaws. So we said, look, address this and that for this bill to be able to work effectively in the manner it's supposed to. So gone back to the Ministry of Information and Media, and I think they're doing some more consultation. But we are keen to get it done. And I'll give an example of the Children's Code Act that had been sitting with the line ministries for close to 11 years. And it was only this government that passed it. So I think if that is an indicator of our will to get these controversial pieces of legislation done, we are keen on achieving that, because it speaks directly to our democratic credentials, and it speaks directly to the fact that in the 8th National Development Plan, we have said we'd want to govern by the rule of law, and that governance pillar is one of the key areas of where we place our priorities. So it will be done together with I know you ask, with the public gathering bill. Yeah.
Oh, right.
The Public Order Act, yes.
Yes.
That one feels like it's designed mostly just to harass opposition parties.
In the wrong hands, yeah. We suffered greatly under it.
Are you going to work on it as a new Dawn government?
Oh yeah. We actually have a complete repeal of it that is sitting with us.
Sitting?
Yes, it was the Zambia Law Development Commission did a report and did a draft bill. So that again has to be finalized into a legislative draft, which can go to Parliament for enactment. Because the legislation process is such that the sponsoring ministry will often come up with what we call a zero draft, which is where the ministry itself has said, this is what we want to see in the law, this is our draft bill, but that often does not meet the cut for proper legislation. So drafts people who are trained specifically in drafting, who sit in the Ministry of Justice, have to go through and make sure that, first of all, the law does not conflict with any existing laws or the Constitution, more importantly, and then that it's properly worded.
When you say sitting, are you just like editing it or doing away with it completely?
So the Public Order Act itself, we are saying we're going to do away with the way it is.
Right. Okay.
And the new Public Gathering Bill is the one that is going to take effect going forward.
Why does it feel like it's just the same thing with a different name?
No, it's actually radically different. The Zambia Law Development Commission came up with certain proposals, for example, spontaneous meetings, where you can decide to have a spontaneous meeting and you give it a day's notice or something like that, or no notice at all, if I recall from the report what is being stated. But of course, in a society such as ours, there should be a relative extent of regulation in the way we do our public gatherings. But I'd like to say there's been a significant change in the country.
Yeah, true.
Significant. There was a time I would have to have a full security team for me to be able to just move from point X to point Y, and even to be on radio. It was a serious challenge. Yes, even at just the level of an aspiring member of parliament, because I think I was a little bit controversial in the way I would speak. I'd have no qualms about talking about the then president in whatever fashion I deemed fit. And that got us in quite a bit of trouble.
You would have been a perfect fit for the podcast. Because people say the same thing about me too. Speaking of repealing the law that was there, I've always said, and it's sitting with you. You want to do away with it to introduce something new. I've always said you should not take down a fence before you know where it was put up. So again, in repealing it, there might have been, but you know this way more than I do, there might have been one or two aspects of that particular law that might have been good, and doing away with it completely then sort of exposes, you might not have put those into account. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because you are looking at the one or two glaring obstacles without actually having looked at the entire thing that it sort of protects. And because you want to do away with one of those two really huge obstacles, you're like, all right, let's do away with this. And once you do, you're like, oh, we actually didn't realize
You
that
open
we
another
have.
can of worms. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. But then people have to be brave and take bold steps, and hope and pray and work on through sensitization, ensuring that society adjusts to that new refound freedom. And agreeing with you, you'll find, for example, the removal of the defamation of the president provisions. We have colleagues who simply will not understand that means that you have to be responsible as a person in the manner in which you exercise your freedom to speak. They'll just go completely in the wrong direction and forget that they have a responsibility to the people generally. I can name a couple of people, but anyway, let's not go there.
So that's been removed, where apparently was a crime to defame the president, right?
Yes.
Has that been removed?
Yes, criminal defamation of the president has been removed from the statute book.
Didn't that, and again we're having a casual conversation, didn't that sort of contradict with the right to freedom of speech? If you can say you can talk about everything else.
And that was part of the reason. It was weaponized. It was being used in a way where the particular provision became a tool of oppression. And of course, it was indirect. The manner in which it was applied was in direct violation of the constitutional right, the freedom of expression. Because I had a couple of clients who'd spent 30, 40, 90 days in custody before they even brought before a court of law on the guise of criminal defamation of the president. So for us, it was crucial that we remove that provision because we know the extent to which it was misused.
So we're now free to talk about the president.
Yeah, of course. But then you need to also remember
keep it within certain boundaries.
Isn't that also subjective? I mean, even when the law was there, isn't it subjective? Because who then sort of determines if something is derogatory? You know what I mean? I could say Mula, the president, has got a funny looking white beard, for example.
And he takes it you know.
But
disrespectfully.
It's always going to be subjective, and that is part of the reason why we said let's remove it so that people can speak freely of these matters. The way the president himself looks at it, he says, "I've got a thick skin. I don't care. You can call me whatever you want to call me. Insult all you want. I know where I want to take this country. So that should not be used by people who are under me as a way of getting to these our political opponents, if I may call it that." I think he's got a very big heart, to be honest, to take a step like that.
I would like to meet his barber. I can't be the only one. Ever since I've seen him, his hairstyle has been exactly the same. Doesn't grow, doesn't get shorter. It's just there. It's just there. He's lining too. I want to meet his barber.
Yeah.
That once we find that guy, man.
It might be a woman.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Aside from the other one. We're hitting 2 years in a few weeks' time, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel you've delivered? How much do you feel you've delivered in your constituency when it comes to the promises you made during the campaign period? Because a lot of lies come out of the campaign period. Yeah.
That's point A. And point B,
Yep.
for how long does the New Dawn government remain new?
Yeah. I'll start with this.
The New Dawn.
With the New Dawn.
Yeah.
I think it's a moniker. It's an expression to show that we have got a new mindset and a new approach to governance issues. So, provided we continue to be innovative in our governance, then we remain New Dawn for time immemorial, because nobody is going to vote us out anytime soon. That's the politician.
It's like the MMD and the New Deal government, right?
And I know we've got a lot of huge plans for this country, right from head of state level. We've got the potential to grow as a country, and you can see some of the things that we are doing that have been done.
It shows.
Yep, it shows. Even just the international respect that we
And engagement.
So I think that's innovative insofar as where we're coming from, especially. So New Dawn will continue for quite a bit. In terms of the promises for this constituency, it's a very, very interesting constituency in that it's so cosmopolitan. You have those that have everything on the one hand, those in between, and those that have little next to nothing.
Which neighborhoods are in your constituency? So Bowlen, that's you as well?
Yes, so we extend up to State Lodge in this part. So we have 4 wards. Kablonga ward, which is down here, Bowlen and them, and Kablonga proper. Then you have Luba ward, which is Woodlands Extension, going up to New Kasama there. And then you have Independence Ward, which is the CBD, Chimbokaila Prison, Skanze Camp, right up to Jacaranda School here. All those Nipa and the rest of them are Independence Ward. And then on the other extreme, you have Sirwizia Ward, which is North Mid, part of Garden, Chilulu, that area, Luangwa, Emersdale Police, and into bordering with the Villa Elizabeth there.
We both live near here, so at least now we know where to bring complaints.
Wait, so I was about to ask, does that cover Kingsland as well?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yes, Zaf base is in Lusaka.
Looks like you've got something to complain about.
It's all the way to Main Street over there.
This doesn't fall under you, but I'm still going to say it. I live in Kingsland. The electricity grid is attached to Bowlen. When they turn Bowlen off, we are in darkness.
But aren't human beings in both?
I don't care. Are we paying the same rates?
Aren't there human beings
Are
in
we
both
paying
neighborhoods?
the same rates?
Oh, goodness.
Well, they pay for the same electricity, which doesn't discriminate. Does electricity discriminate?
Can something be done, please?
Yes, so that when they switch you off, Bowlen remains with power.
Yes.
You see what I did there?
I see what you did
Yes, we have more votes there.
So a square mile.
So some of the key issues that we generally contend with, and which were the campaign promises, was to do with basic life requirements and water, sanitation, key issues with the bigger population. The population in Bowlen here, and people wonder why politicians are all focusing every time Lusaka Central we focus quite a bit on Baulen, it's because of just the sheer numbers that we have there. Just this area itself has got, according to the current population census, around 106,000 people.
Wow.
Yes. So
Baulen.
Yes, just this particular township, 106,000 people. So one of the key challenges that is there is with water and sanitation. So we're currently working on a project, and this was one of the key promises. For me, I had a plan. The intention was to draw water from ZAF, put in commercial boreholes, and pipe it into the township. That was my plan. That was my campaign promise. But it's proving to be a little bit more difficult to achieve that than initially thought, because it's a secure area. And of course, for good reason, ZAF do not want any interference. And the maintenance aspect of it as well. You have people going in and out of a secure area. So what we're doing now, working with Lusaka Water and Sanitation companies, to try and run a project where we'll tap off the mains here at Crossroads. There's a valve that was left for possible expansion. So when they did the Lusaka sanitation project under the Millennium Challenge, they brought some surface water. Previously, we were serviced by Leopards Hill Borehole number 1 down here, but there's surface water now that's from Kafue River that's servicing us all the way up to the embassy there. And then there's a tee-off there, which for expansion going down the road, and that is what we want to do. We want to build infrastructure to be able to feed Baulen from surface water, and then we deal with the problem of water once and for all. And subsequent MPs have been unable to deal with that particular challenge. We still have people using pit latrines in this day and age. We still have a situation where women go to draw water as late as 02 in the morning because the commodity is scarce, and we've had ugly incidences as a result. So it's a basic. For me, that's one of the key things.
Are you going to be the superhero to take people to the promised land?
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, I believe we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't want to arm certain people, and that's the other thing about Lusaka Central. Everybody is in campaign mode.
They don't switch it off.
Oh, no, they don't. And they're gunning for it. I've got at least 6-7 competitors that are actively on the ground trying to...
You got to stay on your toes.
Yeah. And so when you go, you're off to Amsterdam, you're off to Geneva doing government work. Yeah, he's always traveling, and then people go in there. But I think it's part of the challenge, and competition is healthy.
Yeah, it is.
Because it makes you sharp. You need to continually engage. And that's one thing which I believe I'm quite good at.
Another thing.
Actually, we're running a tournament now for...
I was about to ask about that. The charity...
Lusaka Central Boys Soccer Tournament. The girls' one is coming.
Seems you're not very conscious about that.
Before a certain community comes after you.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Another thing that I also wanted to... I've got no dog in this fight when it comes to Baulen, but then it feels as though, especially when you're... the road that cuts through from Leopards Hill, and then you turn into Baulen. You know the road that I'm talking about, right? On that road right there, to your left, where there's a soccer pitch, are heaps and heaps and heaps of garbage that is dumped there. Have you seen that?
Yes. The solid waste challenge, actually, I was going to talk about that. I'm sure you'll be asking about some... My points where I believe that we've not achieved what we intended to achieve. We have a huge challenge with solid waste management in the entire constituency. CBD, that's a complete nightmare, but we're dealing with it, we're attending to it, and that you've talked about. So what is happening now is that we have these community-based enterprises that are given the task of collecting garbage, and that garbage is supposed to be taken to the landfill in Chazanga, is it? It's Chunga is the correct name, in somewhere by the stadium there. But the CBEs are finding illegal dump sites. So that garbage is not generated by Baulen. You have people from all over coming through in the night with trucks
to dump it, to
dump there. Yeah. And we had personally with the area councillor, put in our own resources at one point and cleared 3/4 of that. But it's expensive. You have tipper trucks and front-end loaders on the ground for a good part of the day, working for almost 2 weeks solid to remove the 3/4 of that garbage.
Wow.
Yeah, and that means diesel and all that and all the rest. We're committed to doing that, but of course, resources are limited. We've tried to engage our colleagues at Ministry of Health, because that's a health hazard, the council, and quite a few number of people to help with that. We've also engaged the private sector. But as long as we are unable to regulate the community-based enterprises that are in charge of collecting garbage from Nyumbayanga and whatnot, and they come and dump there, that problem will not end. Yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to find out, you spoke about how you've got so many competitors and people that are gunning for
the same job.
How do you go into Bowlin to campaign and meet people in a Land Cruiser? Not to say you do that, and not alienate yourself or have people think that you relate to the problems that they are facing. You know what I mean? So you go in there, you've got, your designer suits, you jump out of a fancy car and you're like, no, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. People are looking like, how do you achieve that?
Well, I believe a very down to earth and hands-on person. And I'm always engaging with the community. So, that for me is a plus. That has worked in my favor. One of the most despised vehicles actually is the official vehicle, because for various protocol reasons, you are required to move with your windows closed, and the electorate despise that. And if you go into politics, never ever go around with your windows closed. That's you won't believe how that affects the electorate. So it's understanding the basic nuances. Yes. It's a very serious issue.
Just a small gesture like that.
Messes
up the relationship you have with your electorate.
It's not even necessarily the vehicle that you're using per se.
No. Yeah.
It's the way
have
you
the
relate.
windows open.
Yeah, have the windows open. When you're passing and someone recognizes you're the honorable, you're able to stop and greet. And so if you're able to do that, then you continue. Of course, that's just some of it. You continue to have a good relationship with the electorate. For myself, we do a lot of charity work under my foundation, known as the Mulambo Haimbe Foundation. And that allows for lots of opportunities to engage. So just recently we had, we were helping the vulnerable, the elderly, through the church organizations within the community here, and we'll be spreading it around with the donation of food hampers. We managed to get a couple of well-wishers to come along, put our own resources, and we're able to give them little food hampers. And those things you do personally because it comes from the heart. So you're giving this old lady her bag of milli meal, and you talk with her, you actually get blessings, and they'll be saying, no, we've never seen this happening before. So I think those are the sort of things that come naturally from the heart, that keep us going, keep me going at least, from the perspective of what you asked. Despite well, they're not designer, but yeah, despite the suits.
You have to be very careful. Watch this. Let me take you back to court just for a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one eating this.
Yeah, you are.
Actually, I'm supposed to make sure that I prove that there's no poison in there.
Too late.
A little too late.
There we go.
Honorable Haimbe. This is also quite a notorious guy, and
What?
Yeah, you are.
How?
I really worry about him sometimes, and I'll explain why. Because I'm scared one day he might end up in court, and if he does, I'd love him to, the judicial process to move quick. Either he gets sentenced quickly or acquitted quickly. A lot of lawyers are complaining about the speed at which judgments are being done. Is the Ministry of Justice doing any work in relation to how fast a judgment is passed?
Ours is to create the environment in which, yes, the judiciary can do its core function. And we're working closely with the judiciary through the budgeting process, for example. We've increased the allocation for infrastructure. That's one of the biggest challenges. If you go to the magistrates court complex, for example, you'll find that 3 magistrates are sharing one courtroom. Of course, that speaks directly into their efficiency and their capability of executing their functions. So we want to address those through trying to work on.
So that's one of the things
infrastructure.
delaying judgment.
Yes, it has a direct bearing, and the judges are simply overwhelmed. Again, through the budget process, we want to be able to allow for more judges to be appointed. As we speak now, the caseload for each judge is in the hundreds, and that's not ideal. Where the establishment is, do I remember? We are literally at 1/3 the capacity that the judiciary ought to have. So yes, that's a serious challenge, but we are working on it slowly. If you noticed, we had an appointment of 13 judges very recently at the various superior court judges at the various levels. And we want to be able to allow the judiciary to be able to do so through giving them a capacity. Obviously, for us as executive, the most we can do is the policy position, the legal framework, and of course the resources.
Now I was just worried because this guy, he doesn't like peace. Can you see? This guy drags my name just so he plays a stupid drop. Let me tell you, here's a suggestion. When it comes to magistrates not having enough room, Granddad is closed on a Monday.
I was listening intently, like
for good reason. I bring amazing solutions. You're like I'm a president of this country.
Yeah, but there's lots of space there. So the idea is to not at Granddaddy's, at the magistrates court complex. So we're planning that in due course, with the improved economic status, we can put another magistrates court building. Also, the prison space is
we've heard a lot of stories about the prisons.
Yeah. But we're really working in the background, pushing. We just recently completed a prison audit, which helps us understand the status, the prisoners that we have, who can be quickly run through the system, if they're remandees, if there are persons pending, awaiting judgment, and all those, so that we start to clear them out, because it's a painful sight to go into those prisons, which we do very often. I've toured a couple of facilities in the last 2 years, and it's quite sad.
How much of prisons falls under your ministry?
The prisons entirely under Ministry of Home Affairs. The interaction for ourselves is through the Legal Aid Board, which provides free legal services to persons in prison.
Yeah, but then again, your ministry is the one that takes people to prison. You know what I mean?
But that doesn't matter because
no, I'm just saying, like, yeah, but
so it's several players in there. You have from the executive side, you have the law enforcement agencies who do the arrest, investigation, and whatnot, and then you have the DPP there that again functionally is under the Ministry of Justice in inverted commas because it's an independent office, the National Prosecution Authority. But again, for budget purposes and other administrative interlinks, we are the responsible ministry. So you have Home Affairs, a bit of justice in terms of DPP, in terms of the Legal Aid Board, and then you have Judiciary as an independent arm of government that does the actual sending of persons.
Yeah, but the bit that involves the Ministry of Justice and you're one government. So let's talk about collective responsibility. Don't you feel you also can do something considering you've seen the conditions that are in the prisons?
We actually are the forerunners as it is now with putting in interventions to speed up the criminal justice process. We actually learned a concept in was it Uganda, I think? If I'm not mistaken, Uganda, one of the East African countries, where they have what they call camp courts. And we're trying to work on the legislative framework to allow us to be able to hold camp courts. These are courts that sit from time to time at the prisons themselves as a fast-track court.
Wow. Okay.
To run the cases and get people moving. Because you'll be shocked by the number of remandees, people that are pending trial, people that are pending judgment, that are sitting in those prisons, and they cause a lot of congestion. So that is one of the things that we want to work on.
So with what you saw when you visited the prisons, what do you think needs immediate changing? Because I'm worried about Elson in case he ends up
Can you leave me alone?
Yes, one of the things that needs immediate action and which is being worked on, as I mentioned at the beginning, is the discretion that is given for sentencing to magistrates, especially because by and large it's the magistrates that do most of the work that leads to persons being found in prison or otherwise. If we can do away with we can give them the leeway not to always give custodial sentences, increase on the community sentencing, and other sort of sanctions like fines and so on and so forth. It will help to decongest so that you have the most serious offenders finding themselves in custody.
Another thing that we heard about, the meal situation. I thought maybe you're going to talk about that as well. The meals, the sleeping conditions, and things like that.
Actually, I was quite happy to see that the sleeping conditions have improved vastly. You now have a situation where people actually get blankets, the persons that are in incarceration. Some of them actually have now got bunk beds. I was at Katombora Correctional, what is it called? Reformatory School for the juveniles that find themselves in conflict with the law. And they actually have bunk beds and mattresses now. So there's a lot of effort being made to improve the conditions.
This crook of a guest we had last week, Precious, was talking about how they only have one meal, sometimes only given in Shima.
Which I heard, by the way, that she only sold 10,000.
That's why I said the crook of a guest we had last week.
Wasted our time.
That was a very interesting interview. Yes.
You watched that?
Yes.
What were your thoughts?
Apart from Nelson's language.
I was, as a trained legal practitioner, you could see some inconsistencies in the way she was responding. For example, the deliberate effort to avoid saying where the money is. I think you asked a couple of times, you hit the nail on the head and said, do you have the money? He tried and said, let's whisper on the side, but, but she was elusive, but of course for good reason, because she's concerned about her well-being if she were to talk about a very interesting interview. And yeah.
A lot of allegations were raised.
You know what I find interesting? When you go to court, there has to be a complainant, eh? So if
I said that,
yes.
Well, you relax.
Yes. So if then these individuals that she confessed to have stolen from also are questionable in the source of the monies, they can easily be found actually, because there must be a court record of who the complainant was, and the complainant can be put to task as to why they had trunks of money, for example, if at all they did, sitting in their houses. They need to be held accountable for that. So I think there's a direction that can be taken with regard to coming down to the crux of this matter.
However, if these people, I said this to Kalenga, we spoke on the phone. Right? So let's take a hypothetical situation. Money was stolen from trunks. She gets arrested. She goes to court, and there has to be a complainant.
There were five complainants. Remember, she mentioned five charges.
Yeah. So let's say supposedly these 5 people are very powerful people in the previous government. For the reason that you have just said, they are not going to put their names up as a complainant. They're going to get a front, a decoy, a proxy to go and lay the charges on their behalf, because they cannot risk having that being traced to them for obvious reasons. So, and again, this is a matter of public record, where if you go and you pull out the transcripts or whatever it is, you're able to see who pressed the charges, because there's 5 people, so there's 5 names. And unless we see in black and white the name of any prominent ex-government official, then
it's interesting. But law enforcement is a very interesting area, and there are tools that can be used to have the complainants, if they don't speak up as to if there are people behind them, then they will face the music themselves. And usually when individuals realize that they could go to jail for the misdeeds of another person, they'll squeal.
They'll squeal.
Yeah.
Another thing that let's move away from this. Another thing that I've always advocated for is therapy. And I mentioned this in the episode with that person that we had in the previous episode, which is, it feels as though regardless of whatever crime you commit, there's always one punishment, which is prison. Right? You steal, prison. You rape, prison. You murder, prison. Whatever it is, you go to a supermarket, you're hungry, you're starving, you shoplift a bag of meal, prison. I've always felt that if we are able to separate
the alternative sentencing.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the ways we want to, as I mentioned earlier, it was community work and maybe counseling as a way of rehabilitation could be one of those. I know that to a degree there is quite a bit of counseling that's done, but I think what currently happens is that it is done when you're already in incarceration, so that you are then eligible for parole, and it's part of the correctional side of things. So when you go back into society, you're supposed to be a changed person. So whether or not it's effective, because the reality of the matter is that many of the people that leave prison, they don't take long before they're headed back there, because they learn bad habits in there
that take them back.
Because
which is why it's crucial.
I know of one case where a guy who was convicted for aggravated robbery got pardoned. The same day he was released, in the night he committed another robbery, and this one was quite gruesome, because they did a number of heinous things in committing that offense. Same day.
Which sort of ties into Elson's point from last week's episode, where we're talking about a defiler, and you just sentence him and he comes out.
Go to prison.
Yeah. And does the prison time change his mindset? Does his prison time change, his mental state? Because if he comes out and he could defile again, could there be other forms of punishment for him?
In fact, when he comes out, now he knows how to hide his crime better.
He's learned.
Because I feel like it's a sickness, which prison doesn't really solve, but then therapy does.
And in reality, should I be saying this? They are the lowest in the pecking order in prison. They really suffer. That is
it's
a
like
fact.
rapists in America.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yes, that they really suffer, because they get dealt with by the fellow prisoners in many different ways.
The legal system inside.
Yes, in many different ways. But that still does not answer the question, which is formally, how can we
help?
Help in these processes, and indeed. It's becoming very predominant of an offense, especially in the family setup. That's where you have a lot of defilement taking place.
True.
And it doesn't help that the family members themselves suppress the facts.
Right, because that's the breadwinner.
Yes.
In a lot of the cases. So I think just the same way as you guys have got the legal aid, can we have a budget set aside to hire a bunch of counselors? Before somebody goes to court, do you understand what you are being charged with? When someone is in prison, counseling again is pretty imperative and mandatory. And most importantly, right before a person is released, just like the guy who got pardoned, sit down with them, counsel them. You're going to be reintegrated into society. A couple of things are going to happen. People are going to be pointing, are going to be whispering, oh, that's the guy that was in prison for yada, yada, yada. The stigma. So prepare their minds mentally that you most likely would face that.
And I think there is quite a lot of counselling work that's done through the Department of Social Welfare.
Right.
I know that especially victims of defilement and that they're taken care of. But again, it comes back to resources and the availability of enough manpower to be able to effectively deliver those services to the various people that need them. But yes, your point is quite valid. We have to have a societal response to some of these challenges and offenses that we see. I remember once sitting in court in Chongwe. I had a couple of clients that I was working for pro bono, free of charge.
That means free of charge. Pro bono.
Gratis means the same thing.
Just write that down.
Gratis means the same. Let me educate you as well.
And this guy, and this is where it's so sad. I think, again, to the case of stealing small little things, this guy had no representation. I'm sitting in court and I'm watching the trial because I think we were waiting for the next magistrate to come in. So I was sitting in court watching this trial, and this guy is given an opportunity to cross-examine. What does he say? To his accuser, he says, "Maya pamene nabwa mukuba kunyumba munaniona kutindine He's already incriminated himself. You're like,
Shut up.
and you could see the magistrate's jaw drop, like, this guy. So you have, and I think this also is an opportunity to answer the question about whether the law is for the rich only. You have so many of these indigent. Obviously, for someone to go and steal a chicken, it means they're at the lowest level of society in terms of resource availability. So naturally, you don't expect that person is going to manage to get a lawyer. And they get jailed because they don't have the skills to be able to represent themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas for the rich, you'll be able to pay for the best lawyer, and you get acquitted on simple technicalities.
I can get Honorable Haimbe or something like that. You know what I mean? You spoke about guys come out of prison the same day he steals. A lot of times it's because maybe he doesn't see a future outside of prison. He doesn't have money, doesn't have a job.
Some are actually, they've been integrated in there. They can't live outside, actually. So they will do it deliberately so that they go back in.
We see, and I'm sure what we see in the movies is a depiction of the American legal system, where when somebody comes out, they're on parole and whatever, and the government finds them things to do to keep them busy when they come out. Are you doing anything in the future to help prisoners when they come out?
Currently,
Jobs, financial
currently,
assistance,
no, because
maybe.
even you and I are struggling to find responsible good jobs.
Why should they have an advantage?
So currently, no. I know that there are organizations, non-government organizations that try and do that with placements and so on and so forth to help these colleagues to get back on their feet.
Oh, but they learn skills while in prison, right?
Some do.
Yeah.
Some do. There's Priska, the prison.
I always thought that name is too soft.
I know one of the ex-convicts, Matthew Mohan, is also trying to do something of that nature.
Trying? This guy is doing
The most.
more than the average person.
Yeah. So but formally, in terms of government, I'm not aware of a program of that nature.
Yeah, because Matthew was actually telling us that prisoners make furniture.
Yeah.
That
Actually,
he
most of the
sells
furniture in his shop, outer furnishing at Cabo Central Mall,
is
most
made
of
by
it is from
prisoners.
Mokobeko prison. Yeah.
Well, here's what I want to find out, right? So, again, digressing, but still going back to prisons. I know Minister of Health has this campaign, End HIV by, what's the year?
2030? Is it?
2030, give or take. Another thing that the government sort of tries to turn a blind eye on is gay sex. And this happens a lot in prisons. Whether they acknowledge it or they don't, but then it happens.
Yeah.
So let's take a hypothetical situation, for example, where Kalenga's in prison, right?
He had to do that.
You just had to throw it back at me.
and in that particular context.
I know, right?
That's cruel.
But why?
Because you're sitting close to me. Because you're next to me. That's why. Right. So say he's in prison for 5 years. While in prison, he gets a boyfriend, right?
I don't like this example.
You need to
okay.
to take out a defamation action.
I know, right?
Hence why I said hypothetically. Google that word. You'll see what it means. Right. So Kalenga is married. His wife is waiting at home. Goes into prison, HIV negative. Does his shenanigans in there. Comes back out of prison, HIV positive. Passes it on to his wife. His wife in 5 years couldn't wait for him, so she got herself a boyfriend. So pass it on to the wife passes it on to the boyfriend, and the boyfriend has a girlfriend, and the chain basically...
And so on and so forth.
And so on and so forth. Is there anything that is being done to either curb this or address this?
Long story short, why don't you allow conjugal visits in Zambia?
No, not only that, but even with conjugal visits, because conjugal visits are for married people, what do the singles do?
Right.
So it still goes back to the same question.
Right.
A tricky question, really. In terms of the fact that this occurs, I think we've had past reports that have come from experts that have said that there is evidence that this actually occurs in prisons. In the past, I'm not sure whether it's still happening now. There was an attempt to say, can we distribute condoms in prison? I don't know whether that exercise actually commenced or whether it's ongoing if it did. But again, it goes back to one of the key things that needs to be done, because usually the victims of those acts will be the juveniles, the younger guys. And that's why separation of juveniles becomes crucial, instead of them being in the adult population. The question of whether or not to allow conjugal visits, again, is a practical one. Do we have the facilities that would allow for such to happen?
Build a small room.
And a relevant level of privacy. Are we able to ascertain that these are actually married couples? We have also got a situation where you have customary marriages. What are you going to do to be able to determine that Kalenga is actually married to this person who wants
like
to
a
give
single guy at times.
conjugal? So it's a bit of there's a lot of work that needs to be done to be able to place a baseline from where to begin in terms of providing for some of these relief mechanisms, if I may call them that. But it is a real challenge. From past evidence, it has shown consistently that these activities actually do take place.
It would be nice if you were the minister that brought that change, man. Like, just for Elson's sake, you know what I mean?
Because I feel for as long as we bury our heads in the sense that it's not happening, when it's almost like the same debate that was there whether or not we should introduce condoms in schools. You don't want to seem to be promoting it or advocating for sex, just the same way as I'm pretty certain why condoms were not introduced in prisons is you don't want to seem like you are promoting that, it's okay for you to. So Zambia doesn't recognize sodomy, but then we're putting, so it's like a catch-22, basically.
It is.
But then again, something needs to be done, because for as long as that's not addressed, I don't know how much of this end HIV by 2030 is really going to be realized if people are coming out of prisons every year.
But also, if you look at it, aside from the prison population, it's a societal issue as well, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a person who's in incarceration that would be the conduit for the transmission of the disease. It's again a mindset. It's about cultural issues. It's about this whole thing of how we conduct ourselves in society generally. It's quite a big issue to address and deal with. But that being said, the rates have significantly dropped over the years through significant efforts that have been made to changing the mindsets towards how you and I as adults and as the case may be exercise our sexual rights. Now actually the bigger challenge is from the younger age group, from what I've heard from the Ministry of Health. And so we need to have a specific drive around that as well.
Are prisoners tested for HIV?
I'm not sure, actually, to be honest.
And if they are, do they receive medication?
I know that when one visits the prison clinic, like any other patient, there will be investigations that are done. But I don't know whether it's mandatory or not. And even if one is found to be HIV positive, you can't segregate them from the population in
not
a different way.
But then give them medication, because now
yes, there actually is a very, very robust program for antiretroviral treatment for prisoners in all the public facilities. Actually, we have, for instance, at Railway Clinic within Lusaka Central, we have a very, very strong program for HIV/AIDS. So even prisoners are entitled to that. Yes,
I'm still stuck on conjugal visits, man. Like, imagine if you're sentenced to life in prison, like the rest of your life never having sex, man.
But the concept also is that it's punishment.
With your wife a lot, anyway.
By the way,
yeah, but you should stay away from crime, bro. Considering how much you love sex, stay away from crime. But anyway, moving on.
So again, next question is, I had two questions. One from the female prison, and the other one was still going back to prison. Oh, right. It's funny because we're speaking to you about prisons quite a lot, and it doesn't really fall under you. Again, there has been rumor or allegations that if donations come through, Trade Kings donates whatever they donate, only a portion of those donations make it to the intended recipients, i.e. the prisoners. Is there a way that you guys actually take stock of what actually gets to the prisoners and how much is retained by the authorities?
But the number of times, I think this is also very subjective. I've in the past, not even whilst in government circles, interacted a lot in terms of donation to prisoners and whatnot. From my knowledge, these items actually do get to the prisoners. I, of course, it's human behavior. If someone would take a bottle of water out of the 6 that are given, but by and large, they actually depend heavily on these donations. So it's almost a necessity that when the donations get to the prisoners, they are actually used for that purpose. So I don't really know how factual that allegation is.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard it though before.
Yes, I've heard it, but we really do have a very close watch on what happens in these facilities, because it's a human right.
Yeah, it is.
So maybe we'll take a keen look from the perspective of government as well. But I am aware from my earlier life that quite a lot of those the donations get to the intended beneficiaries.
And how about women that are pregnant or have babies?
Circumstantial children.
Yeah.
It's a big issue. It's one of the saddest things I've seen in my life.
Right?
And you find a toddler in there running around there in prison, and it's normal.
So
That's
they
their life.
grow up from there with a mother.
Up to a certain age,
Right.
when they need the mother's care. So the breastfeeding, for example, has to be done by the mother. And they stay in the prison itself, and they get locked up together with the mother in the night.
So
It's
for like
sad.
from 0 to what age?
Usually the oldest that I've seen in there would be around 3 or 4.
No.
years
So all
old.
you know is the prison walls from the time you're born.
And you know it plays on the mind.
It does.
It's
Institutionalized
it's
as well.
thing. Yes,
It does.
Yeah.
I remember we were with colleagues from the GIZ, the German International Corporation. Friendship. I forget what it's.
It's in German, so it's a bit lengthy.
It's a bit lengthy. And they're the ones that are running most of the legal aid program. So we went with them for a prison visit. And one of the sections we visited at Mazabuka prison in particular was where the women are kept, and those circumstantial children. It's cruel.
It is, right?
It's a cruel necessity, if I can call it that, but it's not something that's and it always comes up. When we went for the UPR reporting to the Human Rights Commission under the UN system, that was one of the things that kept coming up. What are you going to do with these circumstantial children? Unfortunately, the interventions are not such that you take them out of prison, but to improve their life in terms of play areas, which are not so obviously prison walls and that kind of thing, nutrition, and of course early instruction for them in a creche sort of system. Those are the type of interventions that are done worldwide. It's not only a phenomenon here, by the way. It's across the globe.
Yeah. And really, how safe are they from the other prisoners?
They are very safe. The mothers with children are kept in a specific cell. When they go into lockdown, because you know how it's done. You're in the daytime, you're in the courtyard. But then at 16 hours is when they are locked into their cells. So it's that period during the day when they mingle with everybody else. But you know,
Including
the
the
mothers,
kids.
yes, the mothers are very, very watchful. But in the night, when of course many things would tend to happen, they've got a specific cell. The cells actually, which ones did we see? For example, is it in Livingstone? Yes, the correctional facility. They are excellent. Very clean, and they've got flushable toilets, very clean, well kept. At least that's a comfort of sorts. But it's when they're out of the cells that's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, so Rodney is doing a good job then.
Yeah,
But here's the silver lining.
you find that this little child thinks that the older convict in there is their grandmother. They run around, go, and you're looking and saying,
No, Gogo is a murderer.
Exactly, and it's true.
I didn't think of it that way.
And it's very exactly. You've hit the nail on the head because those are lifers, and lifers usually would have committed those terrible offences, murder and that kind of thing. Especially in the women's section, you find that it's predominantly murder for those lifers. And that's quite right. That's where the child is running, and you can see some of them are completely detached from emotion, looking at the child. And
that's my point when I said, are the children safe, especially when they are now in the proximity of people like that. But here's the silver lining. You know who was born under those circumstances and went on to be an amazing human?
Do tell.
Tupac.
Serious? Oh, the Black Panthers. Yeah.
Oh, you did not know this, huh?
No, I didn't know that. No.
But then again, he died at 25, so.
Just rub the silver lining.
Institutionalized.
My last question.
Violence too.
You're in a very important office, and I'm sure, legacy is it's wide in every human being. What would you love to be remembered as when you leave office, the ministerial office, Minister of Justice? What reform are you working on?
General legislative reform. We have a lot of legislative reform we have to do. Part of it is under the criminal justice process. I would want to see a more responsive criminal procedure code, a more responsive CPC, dealing with all these matters that we've talked about. If it were entirely up to me, which it isn't, I would have wanted to see certain reforms in terms of judicial reform. Of course, we are working on that as well. But basically, you leave a stamp for being diligent in how you do your work. And that, for me, is the legacy I would like to leave. And people should be able to say, that minister did his work in the interest of the people of Zambia and did it well.
We'd love to hear that cases are being attended to quicker by the time you leave.
If we were able to build more courthouses, and we are working. Personally, I can say this.
So that's what delays court cases. It's infrastructure.
It feeds into that quite significantly, because even at high court level, you have judges sharing courtrooms. Yeah. So if you are going to have a trial, and by the way, there is a hierarchy. You find that your criminal cases take precedence. So even your civil matters will suffer. You go to court, somebody has grabbed your house and you're trying to get it back through a civil case.
Right.
You have to wait until the criminal matters are dealt with and that kind of thing. One of the first things that I did when appointed was to approach possible cooperating partners, stakeholders, to build more superior courts, high court and all the rest of it. And I'm hoping that comes to fruition, because, for example, the then ambassador to Zambia from China was very upbeat and said, we're happy to give you gifts of that nature, like they did with the Mulungushi Conference Center. Of course, I would also want a situation where the economy improves, and this is again a drive from the president, so significantly that we don't have to go around with a begging bowl all the time. We've got sufficient resources to be self-sustained, and I think when we get there, you'll be able to see some of these things happening, where your case can end within 90 days.
That'd be beautiful.
I'd be very happy.
I'd love to see Elson acquitted or sentenced in a short space of time.
I keep telling you, granddaddies. I heard recently Cartel closed down. That's another empty space. Why are you laughing? Didn't Cartel close down? That's an empty space right there.
Spiro, eh?
There's go to Waterfalls.
Garden City.
Have you noticed how that's a ghost mall? There's literally nobody. Those shops are empty. See? Courthouses.
We're back to that. I was wondering, where's the interface on this?
I'm telling you,
so there's enough infrastructure.
There's enough infrastructure. I don't know why you people keep making excuses. Has there been anything that you hoped we would have touched on, asked you, spoken about, that we didn't?
I think we could have chatted for all evening, really. There will be a number of things that we would have talked about generally, but I think we've done justice. One of the things Kalinga asked was about the vision for the I think that's in a nutshell for the constituency, and I just wanted to mention that in Lusaka we are having a challenge with the local authority to procure the contractors to do the CDF work. And I really, really would like to use the opportunity to call on our colleagues at Lusaka City Council to up their game, because everybody is asking, what are you guys doing? And we've scoped the projects. We've got all this community work that's due to be done in terms of building of classroom blocks and all sorts of community work. But it's not yet taking hold from 2022. So I'd like to take that opportunity. I'm looking at that camera. I'd like to take that opportunity to say to LCC procurement team, guys, pull up your socks, because you're making us all look bad.
Yep.
The money is sitting in the accounts. Why isn't the work being done? Please pull up your socks.
Perfect.
Perfect.
There's a lot that I left on the table.
Yeah, I know.
That would have wanted to speak about. So
there's the gun. You've seen the gun now, yeah? I have. We keep saying the more you subscribe, the bigger the guests we can have, and the more serious people we can bring on as well.
yes.
I don't know why I keep making reference to last week's episode,
Hey,
but anyway.
how did I do on the swearing today? Yeah? You're proud of me? Thank you.
Remember to click on the subscribe button and support our sponsors. That's Right Price and Caps
And
Auto
Caps.
Space. When you support them, you support the podcast.
You've got a lot
so-
of very fancy vehicles here. I'm not sure if any of them are European. I see a Nissan. Nissan is Japanese, right?
yes,
Japanese.
Oh, there's Range Rover. So
No,
There's
but then
Range-
that's the government vehicle. So I don't
there's
think...
a Range Rover, which is not a government vehicle.
Oh, right, yes.
So that's European. So Caps Auto Spares.
Yeah, Caps. Have you heard of him?
No, actually.
Oh, okay.
It's a young entrepreneur.
What do you service your vehicle?
With the recognized, yes.
Those guys will rip you off. In my past life, I used to have one like that in my room.
Disclaimer.
No, serious. I used to wait. Hold on. I used to have. I think I might have one or two of those phone numbers, and I used to. I remember the one time that I went to. No, I don't have. The one time that I went there, and I went for a service, and they told me after my service, they said, "Do you know that a new software update for your door handles is going to be available in 2 weeks? Do you want to bring in your car?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Is it going to be free?" They said, "No." Those guys will just rip you off. So yeah, nah. It's the white guy still that's there, right? I forget his name.
I think so. Although obviously not deal directly with management.
Okay.
But the staff.
Try Caps.
Okay,
Caps.
that's well noted.
Yeah.
I know where to get the contacts from.
Yep.
Yeah. Now we're happy to share them with you.
Great.
All right. See you in the next episode. Have a lovely day.
Dun 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 dun